Something didn't sit right, and Jamie Murray didn't even try to hide it. In the middle of what should have been a routine tournament discussion, Andy Murray's brother casually dropped a line that has now turned into one of the most talked about controversies of this Australian Open. He basically said he didn't believe Jannik Sinner's team was being honest about their role in the scheduling of his quarterfinal. And just like that, a tournament known for blazing heat and late-night drama suddenly had a brand new storyline that had nothing to do with forehands or backhands. Now here's why this matters more than people think. Scheduling at a Grand Slam isn't just logistics. It can influence recovery, conditions, crowd energy, and even match outcomes. When a top seed like Sinner, the defending champion, ends up in a time slot that seems a little too convenient after a physically tough match, people start asking questions. And when those questions come from someone inside the tennis world, not a random fan on social media, it hits differently. Let's rewind for a second. Sinner had just come through a match where cramps were clearly affecting him. The heat rule gave him a window to regroup, cool down, and reset physically. It was within the rules, totally legal, but still demanding on his body. Anyone watching could see he wasn't cruising. So when his next match placement became a talking point, the timing of it all naturally raised eyebrows. Jamie Murray, who knows the tour inside out, basically said he didn't buy the idea that Sinner's camp had no involvement in pushing for a later slot. He made it clear he wasn't accusing anyone of cheating. He even said players have every right to make requests. But his main point was simple. He didn't believe nothing was said. In pro tennis, especially at slams, teams are constantly communicating with tournament officials. That's normal. That's strategy. And this is where the story gets interesting, because Darren Cahill, who is part of Sinner's team, had reportedly downplayed the idea that they were maneuvering behind the scenes. According to Jamie, that just doesn't add up. From his perspective, after a draining match, of course a team would try to buy their player as much recovery time as possible. That's not shady. That's smart. What bothered him was the suggestion that no influence was attempted at all. So now fans are stuck in the middle wondering what's real and what's been. On one hand, tournaments always say scheduling decisions are complex. They factor in broadcast needs, ticket sales, player popularity, and rest periods. On the other hand, elite players absolutely have voices that carry weight. That's just the reality of the sport. Roger Federer had it. Serena Williams had it. Novak Djokovic has it. So the idea that the defending champion might have some sway isn't exactly shocking. But here's the twist. Sinner himself didn't demand anything publicly. In fact, when he spoke about scheduling, he sounded pretty neutral. He mentioned that there's a big difference between day and night sessions, which is true, especially in Melbourne where conditions can swing dramatically. He focused more on recovery and preparation than politics. That makes this even more complicated, because now we're separating the player from people around him. And that's something tennis fans sometimes forget. Players often keep their focus on the court, while coaches and agents handle the strategic conversations. So when Jamie Murray questions the honesty of the situation, he might not even be aiming at Sinner personally. He might be talking about the broader system where influence exists but is rarely acknowledged openly. Let's also be honest about the psychology here. Ben Shelton, Sinner's next opponent, is explosive, emotional, and feeds off energy. A night match crowd can turn a contest into a circus. A day match in extreme heat can turn it into survival mode. Either scenario changes the match dynamic. So of course both camps would prefer conditions that favor their players' strengths. That's competition at the highest level. Still, calling someone out publicly is bold. Jamie Murray didn't whisper this in a hallway. He said it during a broadcast conversation. That tells you he felt strongly enough to put his name on the opinion. And coming from a multiple-time Grand Slam champion in doubles, someone who spent decades around locker rooms, it carries credibility. He's seen how the sausage gets made. Now, is there proof that Sinner's team influenced anything? No, and that's important. Right now this is opinion, not evidence. But in sports, perception can be just as powerful as facts. Once fans start believing that certain players get friendlier treatment, every scheduling decision becomes suspicious. Fair or not, that narrative sticks. At the same time, we can't pretend star power has never mattered in tennis. Primetime slots usually feature the biggest names. That's how tournaments maximize global audiences. Sinner is not just a top seed. He's one of the new faces of the sport, a defending champion, and a ratings magnet in multiple markets. From a business standpoint, giving him a marquee position makes sense, with or without physical concerns. What makes the situation spicy is the timing after a match where his body clearly looked vulnerable. It creates the impression that recovery considerations and commercial appeal line up perfectly. That coincidence is what Jamie Murray seems skeptical about. He's basically saying, come on, we all know how this works. Meanwhile, Sinner just keeps winning. That's the part people almost overlook in the noise. He's been nearly untouchable in Melbourne over the past 2 years. Different opponents, different conditions, same result. Calm, clinical, relentless baseline pressure. So even if he did get an ideal slot, he still has to execute. And so far he has. This is also a reminder of how thin the margins are at slams. One extra few hours of recovery can mean fresher legs in the fifth set. Slightly cooler conditions can mean fewer cramps. A night crowd can either energize you or rattle you. These are tiny variables, but at the elite level, tiny variables decide trophies. I also think this story reveals something about tennis culture. Players and teams often operate in gray areas that are technically allowed, but rarely discussed openly. Scheduling requests, practice court preferences, even subtle lobbying. It's part of the ecosystem. What's unusual is hearing someone say out loud that they don't buy the official version. And here's the curiosity piece nobody is talking about yet. If Sinner goes on to win the title again, the scheduling moment will be replayed in debates for years, not as proof of wrongdoing, but as one of those sliding door details people point to when discussing advantages at the top level. Championships create legends, but they also create lingering questions. On the flip side, if he loses, especially in a match where fitness becomes an issue, the whole controversy might fade instantly. That's how sports narratives work. Results decide which stories survive. Right now, we're in the middle of it, and emotions are louder than conclusions. Personally, I think two things can be true at once. Sinner's team likely did what every professional team does, and explore their options. And tournament organizers probably made a decision based on multiple factors, not just one request. That doesn't make it corruption. It makes it modern elite sport, where performance and business constantly intersect. What fascinates me most is how open the conversation has become. Tennis used to keep these topics behind closed doors. Now former and current players are comfortable questioning the process publicly. That transparency might be uncomfortable, but also makes the sport feel more real and less polished. At the end of the day, the only thing Sinner can control is the tennis. If he steps on court and dominates, the noise becomes background sound. If he struggles physically, people will circle back to the scheduling debate instantly. Either way, the spotlight isn't leaving him anytime soon. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think this is just normal tournament politics that every top player benefits from? Or do you believe some stars quietly get advantages others don't? Let me know what side you're on, because this conversation is far from over, and the next round in Melbourne might add even more fuel to the fire.